Feeling podcast. The only nonsense podcast. Making sense of the world. Using our sense of the world. World peace and love through individual strength. Let's say that one more time. It is June 15th, 2021. This is Pal Go On, and I am your host, Herbie. Remember, in one ear and out the other. It is June 15th, 2021. Are you feeling the weight of the body on the front of the spine? And into the rainbow arches. It's cool. All of the times. Guess why that is happening? Where art thou? Whether you are at the grocery store, or maybe you're in your room getting ready for the day, or you're in your car already, driving fast and far away. I hope that you are feeling safe and feeling okay. It is Tuesday. And I want to say thank you, Herbie Like, for the host. Welcome back to Pal Go On. I hope that you have done so well as to feel the front of your shins today. Remembering that you do not sit on your legs, but rather place the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all of the times. Happy Pride Month. Used to be Pride Week, now it's Pride Month. Are you feeling the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times? It is 5:35 a.m. Good morning. Good morning. Are you ready to discuss world peace through individual strength? Are you ready to make sense of the world using our sense of the world? Our senses of the world? That connection to that godlike thing that you are, you godly creature, you, whether you are here watching right now and joining us right now, or whether you are coming back and making me a time traveler to talk to you in the future. I want to welcome you to Pal Go On, ask you if you're feeling the front of your shins, and invite you to let every word go in one ear and out the other. These are just words that you're going to extract whatever makes sense to you in one ear and out the other, right? As you're placing weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times. This month is about love, but isn't every day about love? Isn't every day about doing what you love? Every day, aren't we looking for more things to introduce us to the idea of recovering and recuperating from our bad moods and overcoming any bad situation? Isn't that security in and of itself? Aren't we searching every day to find out if what we're doing is reducing our unnecessary amounts of stress, suffering as much as possible? Aren't we doing that as much as we can every day? Aren't we making every move in actuality to actually help us reduce suffering more and more in the future? Well, no, I like to go to school, Herbie. I like to go to work. I like to see my friends. I like to do the thing with my girls, with my guys. Well, what are those if not reducing stress, right? Reducing those are suffering reducers. As life is suffering, as you know, as you come out the womb, spank, spank, wah, wah. As we already know, life itself, funny enough, happens to be suffering. Even as we come out the womb, the first thing we experience is literally the crying, and that's literally suffering, right? We associate peace more with the idea of the absence of suffering, the reduction of suffering, the lack of suffering, the overcoming of suffering. Um, and that is every day, right? That is, in essence, what we end up looking for in love. Somebody who can make us feel that we don't need to add anything to what we have already, but rather can continuously reduce stress by being ourselves and not trying to be anything that we're not, right? Isn't that what love is? Isn't that what we're doing every day, daily? Finding new ways to deal with stress and to reduce suffering, reduce unnecessary amounts of suffering, finding new ways to do that. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, maybe we're lonely. Maybe that's a type of stress, so we hang out with friends. Maybe we lack affection, so we go hang out with a romantic partner. Maybe we are suffering because we don't have enough money, so we get a job. Maybe we're suffering because we don't have the proper feeling in our legs, so we go to the doctor so we can figure out what that problem is, or we change our lifestyle so we fix that problem. We're suffering because we want to learn how to play piano, but we haven't learned how to play piano yet, so we learn how to play piano. We do things to reduce our suffering. In actuality, in a lot of ways, the only way that we know that we want to do anything is because there is suffering. There's an infinite amount of things that we can feel at all times. So how do you know which one you go to? How do you know which thing in the world to care about? Well, the one that is affecting you most directly. And how do you feel anything? Suffering. And what I mean by suffering, not just like, I'm suffering. Not, you don't have to be tied up to a wall to be suffering, but rather anything from neutral will be suffering. Anything from neutral that is negative would be suffering, right? So for example, a pain in your stomach. You don't normally feel your stomach unless there is a pain in the stomach. In normal situations, your stomach is melted into the rest of your kinesthetic experience, and we like it that way. That's how we prefer it. So that your body feels more at one. Suffering kind of like takes it out, right? It kind of like separates it from it and makes it an other. Temporarily, and then you deal with it. Suffering is actually our friend. Seeing as suffering is the nature of life, it's not necessarily sad. It's not necessarily sad that you're suffering, but rather it is the mechanism by which humans understand where to put their attention to. You godlike thing. This mechanism, right? What I mean by you godlike thing, as in human beings are these godlike things, right? As in they operate on a mechanism for a god. As in you operate religiously, whether you know it or not. As in it's just our design to put something at the top of what we do daily and work our way towards that. Otherwise, our whole life is scattered. So what is your God? God is the thing that reduces your suffering consistently and reliably. Or what you copy so that you can trust that your suffering is going to be as minimal as possible. Because at every given moment, your stupidly smart brain, your friggin' annoyingly smart brain is thinking of all these things that it could be doing. And it's trying to think of all these things of like, okay, should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? And what it chooses, what it decides is the right choice is whatever you've decided to make your religion based on whatever you decided to make your God. Why is that? Because you want to trust that out of all these decisions that you made, you somehow landed upon the one that would still make your life better. How the hell are you going to do that? Well, you have to follow some kind of system that you either create yourself from scratch somehow, you amazing caveman you, or you follow your family or culture or some kind of guidelines to begin your orientation as you shoot out into the world and begin growing and learning to orient yourself with the world. You learn a certain system, and hopefully that system is as closest to the real world as possible, so that when you get flown out into the real world like Apex or something, or like a Fortnite character, you get thrown out into the real world, that you're actually playing, hopefully, a game that's similar to the real world, so that you are damn well prepared. So what is this religion thing? Well, this culture thing, right? As in, we make culture our religion if God is absent. We'll get to that later. But as in, we're always religiously acting because there's no way you're spending every day calculating every single one of your steps to make sure that it is actually going to make your day better, but rather you align with a system that you trust using whatever faculties of logic and reasoning you have at your disposal at the time. So whenever you're learning about whichever system you want to adhere to, you're going to apply logic to it because you are that godly human being creature that you are, endowed with the faculties of reason. Every single one of y'all. If your body's moving and experiencing suffering and seeing how your suffering could be better or worse, you're using those faculties of logic and reasoning, and your suffering's real, right? So if your suffering is real, then God is real. Why is that? Because God is the thing that you decide as a human being that you appoint as that thing that will continuously reduce the suffering in your life, that you can trust, that will consistently and reliably cause you to overcome those sufferings in your life. You don't know what those sufferings are going to be. Nobody really does. But you do know one damn thing, which is that you are going to experience this thing called suffering in life. That is the almighty, ubiquitous axiom for everybody in life, is that you will experience suffering. Uh-oh, doom and gloom, all sad. It's not so sad because that's just the nature of life. You will experience suffering is like the same thing as saying babies cry when they wake up. Babies cry when they come out the womb. Duh. Yeah, because that's just how they know that they're alive. It's how they know that they're not in the womb anymore. You got to compare it to something. And your body reacts a certain way. Crying is one of those things, but crying isn't necessarily sad. You've seen people cry all the time when they're not necessarily sad. And what is sadness anyway, if not a comparison of what something should be? How could you be sad if you weren't already assuming that it should be something, if you weren't already trying to reach beyond your grasp as a human being? If we're comparing it to any other moment, right? So here we are. Life is suffering. So this thing that you make your God is not this religious thing, but rather culture might be your God. Or rather, culture might be your religion, and you might make certain people in the culture your God. Or sex the God. Why would sex be the God? Because sex is that thing where when you finally get closer to it, when you do all things for the retrieval of sex, or in the name of sex, if that is your God, as in your paradigm of thinking, the way that you reduce stress from the next moment to the next, or the one that you put the most trust in to be the most consistent, the most whole, the most complete, the most life-changing, would be sex. If you don't have access to anything that feels better than that. Because as we were talking about yesterday on Padawan episode 22, 3, every person is looking for a physical way to deal with and reduce the suffering in their lives. Daily. Well, it might be a job. Well, money helps you do that then. It might be your job because having a lot of money helps you get a certain amount of things that keeps you distracted long enough to reduce the amount of suffering in your life. Consistently. Why do you think you get so angry when you get home after a long day of work and your television suddenly decides that at this moment it's just going to be super unresponsive? Isn't that super annoying at this moment in time? Because it's just like, I need to reduce it now. That is my use for it. It is to reduce suffering. It is to pour out all my suffering at the end of the day and finally make it to the next day, and then so I can do it again. It makes it all worth it, right? Because we're just looking for that physical release. Without the idea of God, we are naturally going to make sex our drug because it is the closest thing to this physical release that we can do that is something from the inside. So what does that mean if it's on the inside? It's always around you. It's consistent and it's reliable. It's always around you, right? It's always around you. This God thing would be always around you. That's what you would want in a God thing, because it's not whatever you decide, because we decide what our God is, right? As we were discussing earlier. It's not so much a religious thing, but rather a design thing, as we attempt to reduce the amount of things that we think about daily so that we can sit in the moment and enjoy our lives as much as possible is another goal. So rather it being a religious thing, but rather what rules do we apply to this idea of what will reduce our stress and suffering consistently and reliably? sex tends to be that thing because consistently and reliably it is the most overwhelming reduction of stress all in one moment at one time, right? It's the natural human drug. The best feeling that we can fathom from the inside out, at least immediately and most intensely. Most concentratedly reduction of suffering, at least for that time. Make life feel worth it for whatever situation, scenario. No, is there any wonder why so many sciences are revolving around the idea that humans are completely sex centric and we do everything based on the drive for sex? But what is sex anyway? Is it a feeling? Well, why is it a feeling though? Obviously, because it creates the next generation. It's the primary mechanism of the human being. Because if you don't, of the human flesh, because if you do not procreate, then your next generation gone. There's no reason why it feels good. So when people say, "Oh, it's about everything's sex driven," kind of oftentimes just watch the anger in the sense that what is sex, right? It's the feeling for procreation. Though it's often, as you can see just by the reaction, though is often treated as a drug. It's like, oh, it's all about sex, isn't it? It's like this resentful feeling. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it's all about sex if there's nothing else but life longevity that's important to you. If longevity of life is the primary value for you, then of course sex will be the only and primary looker of that. Sex will be the primary watchman of your life if you're seeing longevity as the main thing. And it's hard not to see longevity as the main thing. All of the other values that we talk about all the time: courage, bravery, wisdom, honesty, humility, all these things are invisible, right? Whereas length of life is pretty physical. They're either here and awake, hello, or they're there and gone, bye-bye, underneath the ground, or wherever they are. So it's very physical, very viewable. That the expiration of life is definitely, or the length of life is a value. It is a value. But as we discuss in Padawan all the time, the goal is to get your game rules to be as close as possible to the reality, which we have yet to completely undiscover, right? Or we've yet to completely discover, right? Our reality we're continuously unboxing every day and learning more about every day. And only trying to get closer to a set of rules that we can follow religiously, using a God figure as an ideal so that we can lessen the amount of work that we need to do every day so that we can just focus all of our human potential and attention on one task at a time, which tends to be how we enjoy life the most. Remember when you were a kid and just fiddling with one thing, nothing else in the world mattered, right? All your attention is on one thing. How do you get that again? Well, you get a religion that models the world so well that it doesn't matter what you're doing. As long as you're following this religion, you can trust that that is the best decision for you at the right time, and everything you care about, that's the religion we're looking for. That's all it is. And so when you find that, you can focus all your human attention on one thing at a time again and become childlike again, with the responsibilities and the ability to move yourself and be what you want to be as an adult, and experience the nectar of the life that you can get by being an adult, but with the saturation and the intensity of being a child. Wouldn't that be amazing? Both of them at the same time. Wouldn't that be amazing? Both childlike, but powerful, like an adult, yet creative and in the moment like a child. We're looking for that religion. Something that feels that good. Doesn't that feel good? But until something like that feels that good, it's going to be the God is sex. Because we're looking for the ultimate stress reliever to make every moment in the world worth it, especially as we become a more globalized world in the globalized effort with the internet. You're here watching this on YouTube. What's up, YouTube, or DLive, or Twitch? What's up, y'all? Wherever you guys are watching this, become a global world. So our attention and awareness on the other, on the other people in the world is becoming more and more near. It's becoming more and more immediate. And we're loving creatures, so we care about the world. So as we care about the world, we're looking for a better definition of this religion thing. And as we're coming more in contact with the world, and as we are so loving, we we need to find a better way to feel the overall collective's situation, because we are so aware of everybody in the world at the same time now. We're becoming so much more acutely aware of the human condition, and we're becoming more open to it. We're seeing a lot of things in the world right now which whether or not align with what we would do personally, because we care about people, the way we feel about people is that we want them to do whatever they want, is that we want them to be free. We want them to be happy. So even though certain belief systems may work for us, it's becoming almost increasingly harder to talk about it with other people, because it's our globalization is right next to our human compassion. This globalization is right next to our human compassion of wanting to care for each other, as we also naturally have. We also naturally want everybody to have as strong a connection with this, their own internal autopilot God thing, as everybody else, right? But this globalization of the world, with everybody having different views of what this God thing is contrasted with our compassion. So we haven't actually talked about why it might be an issue for sex to be seen as the only God thing. Because if you can't feel a connection with the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times, and if you can't remember that you don't sit on your legs and feel the front of your shins, if you don't have a way to consistently, reliably deal with stress, you're going to look at sex as the God. Which makes sense. Who are we to say that in your life you're not allowed to reduce stress, that you're not allowed to survive, do what you need to do to survive? And in the world becoming more global, we're becoming more and more stressed as we're becoming more and more aware of the world. We're caring creatures, so the more we know about the humans in the world, the more that we want to do something about it. So we have a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress. So even more so, how can you deny someone the access to some kind of God or religion that will help them reduce their amount of stress? This world becoming so global. The world is becoming so global. We're becoming so much more acutely aware of everybody in the world. So there's a lot of stress. So who are we to say, who is anybody to say that you are not allowed to reduce that amount of stress, as we're thrusting more and more stress on you every day, right? As your socials are throwing more and more stress on you every day. Look at all these things in the world you should be concerned about. Well, I know you're just trying to email your friend. I know you're just trying to DM your homie. I know you're just trying to keep in touch with family, but look at all these things that you should be stressed out in the world. Look at all these people suffering. Look at all these people happier than you. Look at all these things you don't have. Look at all these ways that you can blame other people for your problems so that you can dig yourself deeper. Look at all these women you don't have. Look at all these men who don't care about you. So you're constantly being bombarded on your phone as you're scrolling up. As you're swiping. You're constantly being bombarded with things to be stressed about. So who is anybody to tell you that you are not allowed to adhere to this thing that causes you to reduce your stress? Jacking off, having sex, smoking a ganj. Who is anybody to tell you to reduce the amount of stress that you're going through when when the world is constantly bombarding you with reasons to be stressed right now, right? That's currently what Pride Month is. That's currently what Pride Month is all about. Who are you to tell them that they are not allowed to access this stress reliever, when in actuality, a lot of these people are feeling a lot of that stress because in their hearts, they're making sacrifices for people. A lot of people in the world right now are in that mode of feeling like they've spent their life making sacrifices for people. So now, don't you go and tell them what they can and cannot do to feel this God thing, to feel stress relieved. If sex is their God, who are you to starve them of this God when they've been spending their whole life hiding their God and sacrificing their own security in themselves and their own dignity, integrity, whatever it might be, their own social status, opportunities to balance themselves. They feel like they've been robbed of that. So who are you to tell them that now, after they've done that for you guys in their head, right? That they're not allowed access to this stress reliever, this consistent, reliable stress reliever that a God and religion is supposed to give to you, right? Religion as in something you follow religiously, as in we all do something like that. Everyone does, because you're not thinking about everything at the same time, right? You're not thinking about all the things at the same time. So you're doing things every day with a certain amount of faith that is going to continue and progress you towards something. What is that something? Well, whatever you've appointed to be God, whatever you've appointed to be this ultimate stress reliever, this ideal goal of ability to overcome all stress at all times or at any time that you want. Isn't sex that thing? Right? How many social situations could you not have dealt with, or can you only deal with because you're getting some, or because you know that you can go home later and deal with it? Go online and deal with yourself physically, or enjoy it, whatever it might be. As in, it is the human drug, right? This sex thing. You go do whatever you want, but you got to acknowledge the fact that it is the human drug. Otherwise, you're in the dog playing tag. Might get some people mad. As long as we're acknowledging that, you go do whatever you want, baby. So isn't it so important to have that natural human drug, to have that natural human ability to, and of course I don't mean literally a drug, unless you, I mean, in the figurative sense, right? As in, we use it as a drug. Its primary use is important, which is why it feels so good, which is why it is such a gigantic theme in human art, history, and so on and so forth. But because it is all those things, it becomes the natural human drug, the natural human stress reliever, when there's a detachment from anything else that might feel better. How are you going to care about anything else if it's the best feeling, and if it's a feeling that it seems to line up with everything, right? You do well in life, you have more access to this godly feeling, supposedly, right? Other than the fact that you get addicted to it, other than the fact that you lose all energy after it, other than the fact that you lose it after a certain age, other than the fact that using it often can often lead to self-destruction and addiction. Why do we do that? Because we're looking for a way to deal with stress, because everybody goes through stress, and everybody is looking for their own way to deal with that stress. Everyone's got a different load in a different way, but everybody's looking for a way to consistently deal with that stress, are they not? And what is that stress if not a physical thing? So everybody's trying to look for a way to achieve this great feeling, which ends up being sex for a lot of people in a lot of ways. Everybody recognizes that it feels good. Everybody can use it for stress relief. Others need it more than others. This sex thing, because we're all going through stress, right? If there's one thing that's true across the board, straight, gay, pan, pride, angry, loving, unloving, lazy, sloth, one thing all across the board is that each of them experience suffering that they want to reduce. Each of them want a one-size-fits-all machine to deal with suffering, so that they can just focus on what is being experienced rather than how to deal with it. Sex tends to be those things. If you're getting angry with me, oh, they're yelling at me? whatever, I'm just gonna deal with it. You're like a drug addict at that point, right? Because it's like, whatever, I'm gonna deal with it because I can deal with it at home, baby. Yell at me right now, you just like smile through. As you know, in 8 hours you're gonna be home. You're gonna be with you're gonna be with ideas of your favorite woman or your ideas of your favorite man. Just take care of yourself, and then it feels worth it for a little while until you wake up, and then you're back in hell again. You got to do it all over. What happens when the internet goes out? What happens when you can't do that? What happens when you don't have no money? What happens when the relatives arrive and you are not able to equalize the way that you normally do? Are you just going to take it out on them? There's a few issues with seeing it as a god. Well, not the least of which is just the inconsistency. We're looking for a consistent and reliable way to deal with stress. That's all it is, baby. As we place the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all times. How are you feeling in front of the shins? Remembering that you do not sit on your legs. We're looking for an internal feeling that's consistent. Consistent as in you shouldn't, but if you needed to, at this moment, you'd start like, I mean, you know, who's to say what you should do whatever you want, you free ass human being, you godly human being. But anyway, so you could doing whatever you want. Consistent as in you could choose to go ahead and lay hands on thyself, and it's always there. Your body's always there, right? It's consistent. No wonder we make sex the god, since we're looking for a consistent and measurable, reliable dealer with stress. And the most consistent thing that we know is our body. And this thing does deal with the stress, so it's consistent and it deals with the stress. Well, there you go. That is the god. So who are you to tell anybody that they're not allowed to have access to this thing? Right? The whole pride thing. Is that not where it comes from? Let's say that they had found this ultimate stress reliever. A one size fits all, they say, that will indeed be a panacea and be a guide towards the overcoming of any kind of suffering that you're going through. They say it just happens to be the one size fits all to all of your suffering. They say it just so happens to give you ultimate life. They say it just so happens to make the life you have bearable. And you can guarantee that it's bearable. They say that there is a method. They say that there is a philosophy of life that you can participate in. And should you participate in, you will continuously feel this godly feeling within you, and nothing will harm you. You'll be protected forever. Let's say that. Let's say that there's this line of thinking that will protect you forever. You can trust that it's the best way of thinking that will consistently and reliably help you deal with all stress in your life. Not only make you enjoy life, but make it manageable. Have you survive. Let's say there's a philosophy that helps you survive. And then, let's say that out of no choice of your own, you now are banned from it. You do not get to experience this. You are not allowed to experience this line of thinking. You are not allowed to have a consistent, reliable way to survive your suffering. You are banned. You are banned out of no choice of your own. You are banned. Get out of here. Go somewhere else and be somewhere where you will not reliably deal with suffering, but rather have to deal every day hoping that your line of thinking is stronger and more efficient, more well thought out, and more brave, and more correct than this monolith of thousands and thousands of years of human history being passed along that they banned you from without any choice of your own. They banned you from it just because they said, hey, you, something that you did, oh, now you're banned forever. You're not even human because you don't have access to this God thing that we're describing to you, that we all have, this overcomer, this ultimate stress reliever, ultimate suffering reducer that can guarantee you will overcome anything. You're banned from using it through no fault of your own, through something that you don't even understand. Imagine that. God is real, but you're banned from it. Okay, well, screw this God thing, is what they would say. This ultimate overcomer, it's not crap. It ain't nothing compared to what I can do for myself. This ultimate stress reducer. I don't need ultimate stress reducer. I'm good on my own. I don't need that. I'm the best on my own. I have to be the best on my own because there's nothing else out there being the best on their own for me. Unlike everybody else out there, they all got someone on their side, but not me. So I just got me. So I'm the best. I have to be the best. I have to be because there's nothing else rooting for me like that. Nothing else rooting for me but me. I have to be the best. For my survival's sake, for me to overcome, for me to handle all this stress that I'm dealing with. No one else is dealing with this. No one else is on my team the same way that I am. And no one else has to deal with the stress the way that I am, the way that I am, because I'm here in the physical center of it. So I must be the best. You see Pride Week? You see what Pride Week is? I have to be the best. Because I don't have connection with anything that would allow me to believe anything else. There's nothing else in here but me. Nothing else rooting for me. This person's suffering every day, right? I'm suffering every day because I love these people and I love these things. But I don't know how to care for them and I don't know how to keep them around me. So I do these things to myself, like sacrifice for myself. I sacrifice for others for myself. And I don't understand it. I don't understand it because it's just me. I'm feeling all this suffering. I'm the only one who has to deal with it. But you're telling me I'm not the best? So then that means that I'm not fighting the hardest for my life because there's no one else in here dealing with this suffering but me. So if I'm not the best and someone else is the best, then that means that my life is worse because there's no one else dealing with my stress but me. So I have to be the best. I have to deal with this stress the best. I have to be the best because no one else is going to be in here helping me with this. So I have to be the best. There's no force in here allowing me to feel better if sex is not there for me. If I don't have my preferred lover, if I don't have somebody who can allow me to indulge in myself more and be unashamed of that, if I can't have access to something that'll help me reduce stress the next day reliably and consistently, if I don't have any of that, if I don't have access to this sex thing, dude, what do I have? I have to reduce this stress. I'm the only one who can do this part. I need a reliable way to get there. I need a reliable way to get to this thing that you guys are talking about. It doesn't exist in my world, right? I'll tell you that everything that you're describing is sex. That's what I would tell you. If you tell me that there is some ultimate reliever of stress, ultimate reliever of stress, consistently ultimate reliever of stress, should you just follow this philosophy? It's the ultimate reliever of stress. How can you call it the ultimate reliever of stress if it doesn't relieve my stress? My specific stress. Oh, because you're different. Then is it the ultimate reliever of stress? Your God will crumble. How good is it if it can't help me? Is what they would say. Why can't it help you? Again, this feeling of wanting to deal with stress every day consistently and reliably. Well, I'll tell you one right here. It's called a pineal gland. It's called the penis. It's called the vagines. It's called jacking. It's called sex. Something that fits the same category of what we make God. Consistent and reliable reduction of suffering. Consistent and reliable reduction of suffering. something that we can always call upon with our own will and begin the process of overcoming immediately. As in, today was stressful. Let's begin the process of overcoming immediately. Zip, immediately. Within seconds, you're in a different place. If you're an opioid addict, within seconds, with sex, it's that natural one, right? You don't need to roll nothing. You don't need to imbibe nothing. You just look down, start going away. Start thinking about something, go at it. It's so accessible the way you'd want a God to be. No wonder the idea of God has got swept under a tree. We're looking for something immediate, physical, that will overcome suffering, that will reduce suffering immediately. The way that you would want a God to do. So why is sex the God? Well, because the God thing should feel better, right? It should be more immediate. It should help more almightingly as they advertise it to. Should it not? So until it feels better than sex, it will not be people's mainstay. It will not be the choice, but rather a reaction to fear, which no one will follow. It can only be beat into you. It can only be feared into you by your upbringing. But no one's going to follow that. No one follows that until it actually feels good. It must feel better than sex. Can it feel better than sex? Why not? Feel the weight of the body down in front of the spine and into the rainbow arches all the times. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front, not the back. Not the back. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front, not the back. Back. Not the spiny portion of the back, which has like holes on each side of the spines, about the size of a finger, which the nerves go through. It's not meant to hold any weight, right? It's a structure that's meant to secure and guide the nerves, the actual very delicate and sensitive parts of your body. But rather, the weight-bearing portion is the more thicker, girthy part of the spine. But it's still part of the spine in and of the same, right? The back and the front of the spine are still the same. There's still a spine, different roles of the same spine. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Now, why might that feel better than sex? It's not as intense as sex, Herbie. You can't do this to your spine. Can't do that to your spine. I get, you can't do that to your spine. But your spine is always there. And you can always have a connection with it. And after you spend 30 minutes feeling your spine, it doesn't shut down like a generator and cause you to be in slow motion or fall asleep for the next 6 hours. And then have low energy for the next 12, 18. And then have you addicted to that feeling that can be taken away from you, as opposed to the feeling in front of the spine, in which, in all scenarios, as you're feeling the weight of the body in front of the spine and into the rainbow arches, at all of the times, in all scenarios, can't you always have connection with that spine? Whether you're having sex, whether you're on a roller coaster, whether you're eating great food, whether you're drinking great soda, whether you're visiting family, whether you're on a great planet, whether you're underwater, can't you always feel the front of the weight of the body on the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches? Can it be an intensity that doesn't need to throw you into a refractory period after, as you feel in front of the shins? And remember that you don't sit on your legs. There's a lot said about the amazingness of the feeling of sex because it's our closest connection to something that's consistent and reliable and intense way to feel good about yourself and to deal with stress in your life. One of the stresses we might all feel in life is feeling less than important, less than powerful. Sex gives us that. An orgasm gives you that, the feeling of power, the feeling of importance, the feeling of affection. So as we are suffering daily, as you see exposed to more and more people every day, we're exposed to more and more feelings that we wish we could be feeling, things that we wish we could have. And an orgasm will always put you right at the forefront, making you feel for at least a slight moment that you have and deserve all those things. And then it's snatched away from you, you addict. Is it not? But as beautiful as it is, right? Humans are so beautiful. Women, boobies. They're so beautiful, right? because we attach it to this immediate idea of this oneness with the moment, the ability to detach ourselves from suffering, the ability to reduce our suffering consistently and reliably, and feel pleasure and feel important and affectioned, important and loved in that moment. Feel important and cared for as your body is being told, hey, you will reproduce. So you're being told through meaning that you are being cared for, and then it is being reinforced through physical pleasure that you are being loved. But it's coming from the implied idea that you are being reproduced consensually. That is where it originates from, this feeling, right? Of sex, masturbation. It's this meaning of, it's this implicit meaning of, hey, you're so worth it that you are now being reproduced. And it's reinforced through feeling, right? Isn't that the case? Something's telling you you're worth it, or this philosophy telling you you're not worth it? Which one are you going to go with? This physical feeling that is implying that you're worth it, or this book and philosophy that are telling you you're definitely not worth it? Which one are you going to go with? This physical feeling that allows you to overcome and reduce all suffering in your life consistently, but not consistently, because once you do it, you're addicted to it and you can only do it sometimes and you can't share it with people and you're kind of ashamed of it. Or this other thing which tells you you're not worth it, claims to have a consistent system to deal with all suffering in your life, but then snatches away from you. Which one are you going to go with? The one that is reliable but inconsistent physical way of feeling immediately good about yourself, or the one that's consistently telling you that you shouldn't feel good about yourself and it won't even help you? You're going to go with sex, the thing that makes you overcome suffering reliably and consistently. You have the security in yourself that you will feel better when you are praying to this sex god, right? You have the security that I can deal with this moment because I can go home and jack off. I can go home and get mine. You have the security. As we're all getting more and more insecure as the days go by, we're exposed to more human comparison, making us insecure. What is that insecurity? Maybe the insecurity that we will have a better moment, a way to overcome our next suffering. But if you can secure that, if you can secure the feeling that you will overcome the next bit of suffering, if you can secure the feeling that you have a consistent and reliable mechanism to deal with all suffering, if you can secure that, would you not feel secure? If you could secure a way that you would be certain that you could deal with all suffering, wouldn't you feel secure? Isn't that what insecurity and security is? The feeling that you have a consistent and reliable method to deal with the suffering in the way that is best for you, in the way that you want to for yourself, before it was bastardized by when you tried to people please. For your mother, for your father, for your family, for your school friends, whatever it might be. What is Pride Week? Why are gays associated with sex so heavily usually? I mean, other than the fact that being gay literally has to do with sex. But why are they so, but why is the entire parade, why is the entire movement so heavily focused on the sexual physical aspect of it? The physical aspect. Why is the culture so into themselves? Let's be honest. If you're gay and you're listening to this, you're hella into yourself. Let's be honest. It's true. You're super into yourself. Don't lie. I know you. If you're listening to this, if you've gone this far and you're gay, yeah, I know you. And I know that you're loving, and I love you. But you're into yourself. You're hella into yourself. Don't lie. You have to be necessarily, because we're all looking for something to deal with stress reliably and consistently. And if you don't think that's true for everybody, well, then you're the issue at the moment. Because it's true that everybody is going to be the same. We have to be. We believe that all men and women are created equal, right? All men and women have the same dignity, but we're two halves of the same species, right? We all have to be the same. So unless you're like living in some kooky world where everybody is their own species, so you have to invent your own medical book for every person you meet, then you know that all humans have a similar design, so that we've always been looking for the most similar design so that we can empathize with other people, so that we can get the most out of our relationships with other people, so that we can ask people to help us most effectively, so that we can help to them, so that we can love them most effectively. We've always been looking to purify like gravity, get closer and closer and closer and closer to this singular idea of what human beings are as we become more and more united, so we can let go and just enjoy each other, right? So as I know myself, I know you, and you know me. And you know that you love me, and I know that I love you, and you know that I love you, and I know that you love me. So what's this love thing about? About helping each other find and get closer to this mechanism within our own body to consistently and reliably reduce all stress that comes our way. We all have this thing that we've discovered, this connection to this godlike thing within us. We already appoint something our God, and we act religiously. We act on faith. We act in a way that we expect that will be making at least good decisions for ourselves in whatever way we define that. We define that based on what we define as our religion, our God. It's like, oh, I want to get the most of this God thing. So I'm going to make it this sex thing. So I'm going to follow the religion of culture, because culture seems to get me the most of this sex thing, which I make my God. But I make my God this sex thing because sex is the most consistent and reliable reducer of this consistent suffering that I have in my life that is brought upon by physical suffering and death, the impending doom that we all have. So sex is the most consistent and reliable way to shake my head and distract myself from that awful feeling. So I'm going to follow the culture, which gets me more of that sex thing. Because we're all just looking for a way to reduce the stress in our lives, right? Like I said, you know me, and I know you. You know me. We're all just looking for a way to deal with stress. And we're looking for the most comprehensive model of that, the most overarching, the best umbrella for what that looks like, that philosophy, so that we can let go and reduce our suffering as much as possible, consistently and reliably, because we don't know what the suffering is going to look like. Nobody knows what the hell the suffering is going to look like, but you want to deal with it. You want to be, that is one of the sufferings, is not knowing if you can deal with it. It's so scary. So one of the ways that you know something's true is by time, right? Truth reasserts itself over time. It's like, how do you know that something is true? Well, it's there every day. How do you know it's true that that tree is real outside? Well, it's there every day. How do you know gravity is true? Because every day it keeps asserting itself over and over and over. In a way, that's how humans know anything to be true, is over time. So how do you trust that this monolith, that this line of thinking is going to be reliable for you, that you can trust that it's true? Well, you look at the past, you look at history, you look at people. You look at people. But if you don't have a common language between all the people, you're without a paddle, baby. What do you have to learn? Everybody is new, right? Everything is new. So how can you reliably figure out a way to deal with suffering in a way that you can trust if there is no God thing? If you have no, if in your brain you have not integrated the idea that humans have a property for God. They have a slot, they have an affinity. Not just an affinity, they have a pull towards a feeling of God, a gravity towards God. Now what they assign to be that God, what they appoint to be that God, is up to them. But like gravity, all things they do orients towards this idea of God, this idea of what they consider to be their most consistent and reliable way of reducing suffering. Always gravitating towards that. The most consistent and reliable reduction of suffering, the most consistent and reliable reducer of suffering in your life. Humans like gravity fall towards that, period, point blank. Different things might weigh on your soul, so people will find different things to reduce their suffering, because different things weigh on different people's souls. But we're all looking for a way to reduce that suffering. So if there's no God, if there's no common fabric between human beings, then you are left without a paddle. How scary. How can you trust that? We know that trust comes from time. What better ways, what more time can there be than more than a lifetime? Try 5, try 10, try 20 lifetimes. Try hundreds. Versus your first lifetime if you assume that there's no unifying idea of an ideal stress reliever as an ideal, consistent, and reliable way to reduce stress and anxiety and overcome hardships. If there is no consistent and reliable way to handle all suffering across human beings, if there is one consistent and reliable way to reduce suffering in all human beings, then humans must be different. And this must be true only because humans must all be different in your head. As in, you might not have access to this thing, so you don't believe it, but you don't believe it exists in other people. So now what are these people looking for? The next stress reliever, ultimate, consistent and reliable stress reliever, sex. But where's the history on that? How can you trust this thing? I guess by every day in your experience, you jerk it, you feel it, you allow yourself to be around people who will allow you to feel it so that you can understand it, this thing, and to see that it is true. It is your God thing, this sex, right? Because it's reliable, it's consistent, and you are able to trust it daily as the time goes on because you can trust it against time. Isn't that why? Isn't that why? But if you're feeling the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches, can't you have that all other times? Feel the front of the shins. And then you don't sit on your legs. We're looking for an ultimate, consistent suffering reducer. And if you can't feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine, you're going to choose sex. If you can't feel something as immediately as the front of the shins, there's no direction on that. Aren't you going to go to sex? You don't even need direction on that. You don't need no ritual. You don't need no book. You simply need your genitalia and some other object to get going. Start reducing your stress, right? Isn't that the case? Whereas, now we're coming on new knowledge. We can place the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the time. And aren't those two attacking the same goal? You're not looking to be a sex fiend, are you? You're looking to overcome all suffering. You're looking to reduce the stress in your life. You're looking to reduce the suffering in your life consistently and reliably. What if there was a better method? What if there was a method more closer to the design? That you don't need anyone else. That can't be taken away from you. That you can't be addicted to in a way that will cause you to throw your life away. As you're placing the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times. Weren't we just looking for a way for the insides of ourselves to feel as good as we want to on the outside, consistently and reliably? As you're placing your weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches all the times. Weren't we just looking? Aren't we always all just looking for a way to overcome suffering that we don't even know is coming? We're looking for a consistent and reliable way to deal with all suffering. I don't care if you're straight, pan, tran, bi, alien, fat, skinny, loving, unloving, lazy, girthy, skinny. No matter what you are, no matter what kind of human you are, you gravitate towards your God, your thing that you decide will consistently and reliably help you deal with all suffering. We used to find it in outside things like water, falls, food. Then we got closer and closer to the human experience and we said, oh, okay, another human being, more human beings, sex, women, boobies, penals, the love of another person. And then we got even closer and we're like, hey, that actually could be right here within you, so no one can take that away. It actually exists right in here. And you know what? Other people just awaken that within you. The water and the food and stuff just awakens that within you. But guess what? The gears that turn to spark that electricity right there inside you, y'all. Your connection with God right there inside you, y'all. And then there was a faction of people who are like, throughout life, throughout history, there's always a faction of people who are like, yo, dog, how come it's hard for me to feel? And then other people are like, sucks. And they're like, well, that's lame. We're going to do all the things that are involved with being forsaken from the best feeling that everyone else is talking about. And then here we are today. We're like, oh yeah, so let's rewind. Back up, guys, chill. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, but also you're not wrong, you're not wrong, you're not wrong, you're not wrong. Weren't we always just looking for a way to deal with the suffering physically, every day, immediately? Isn't that what we're just looking for? Weren't all we just looking for is just a way to immediately deal with our suffering of not feeling like we fit in? Immediately and consistently deal with the feeling of not feeling loved? Immediately and consistently and reliably deal with the feeling of not having any love? Weren't we always just consistently and reliably, or weren't we always looking for a way to consistently and reliably feel like this next moment is going to make it all worth it? Physically, immediately, from within, something that can't be taken away from you, something that we can trust, something that we have, something that we can have security in. Weren't we always just looking to be secure? Weren't we always looking to secure a way to deal with all suffering physically, immediately, and consistently and reliably? Weren't we always just looking for that? Didn't sex take that form as we suffer through life and introduce ourselves more to the idea that there's also a lot of other human beings in life that we could be helping? Doesn't that stress us out? Make us have to deal with that in our own ways. Go home and deal with that again. That stress, like, oh no, so much pressure. So from beginning to end, human beings, weren't we always just looking for a way to physically weren't we always looking for a way to feel secure in that physically and spiritually and emotionally overcome all suffering that comes our way, as uncertain as that might be? Don't we want that coming from within so it can't be snatched away from you from nobody? Just looking for a way to deal with, were we always looking just for a way to secure a way to deal with all suffering consistently and reliably and feel like it was all worth it, make ourselves physically feel like this moment's gonna feel better than the last, like we can immediately physically feel better, kinesthetically feel better from ourselves, because of ourselves. Like we want to enact on that shit. We want to be able to be like, yo, I want to feel better right now. We want to do that. Well, can't you feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine now? And into the rainbow arches at all the times? You don't sit on your legs. This has been Palgo On! We're talking the best feeling podcast. We're talking the no nonsense podcast. Making sense of the world using our sense of the world. World peace and love through individual strength. This has been Palgo On, and I am your host, Herbie. And remember, in one ear and always out the other. We'll be back tomorrow, 5:30, every weekday. June 14. Or is it June 15? You know it's June 15, 2021. Thank you so much for being here. Love you. Have a great one, okay? I hope you enjoy thyself. Remember to feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine. Feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine. And into the rainbow arches at all times. And from the front of your shins, and remember, you do not sit on your legs. This has been Palgo On.